That this is relevant, even in youngsters that did not, young people that did not understand or was not here when Dr. King was here or involved in him. I did not meet Dr. King or hear any of his speeches personally. In fact, when I was coming up on the streets of St. Louis, my background is violence. I belonged to gangs and I used to do a lot of fighting. That was my environment. We had to fight to school and fight back home. And I didn't think what Dr. King was doing would solve the problems. I thought you solved your problem with a stick or a gun. And I did both of those. I'm not proud of it, but that's a fact. Then I joined the police department in 1965 and continued my activity of doing things that I'm not proud of now, because I thought that was the way you would control people, the peacekeeper rather than peacemaker. I didn't understand what that meant. And then I met Dr. Lafayette and David Jansen, so they trained me, and my experience comes from the King Center. I used to go down there every year because when Dr. Lafayette met me in St. Louis, and we had an education problem with my son, and I was ready to go to the school board and do some violence on the school board because my son was a football player and he was not passing in school. And I told him he could not play football, and the school system said, yes, he should play with a D average. And I thought that you're not concerned about my son, you're concerned about that 3-pound bag of air he carries up on his arm. And Dr. Lafayette's son was in St. Louis, and we had a very angry parent meeting, and we were ready to do violence. And the first thing about nonviolence, you have to lead from the rear. If Dr. Lafayette had come to me in the 70s and said, let me tell you about Martin Luther King and the nonviolent movement, I said, thank you, I am leaving now. Get me something to do some violence with. So it's all your way you approach, the way you, in young people, we say you shouldn't tell them, you should not tell them. You just ask dumb questions, okay? Because they're tired of us telling. In fact, our youngsters are on AM and we're on FM. We have no idea. And as long as we turn the volume up, they cannot hear it because we're on different frequencies. And they don't want to hear about the good old times. They don't want to hear about, they'll listen to the history for a little bit, but they want to see how it works now. Police officers the same way, college students. So you have to whet their appetite where we come from, but tell them how it applies now in my campus problems, in my community problems, in my drug problems. And we've been able to experience that with some success, some serious success that I had no idea I would retire from the police department in 1992. I had outgrown the police department. I had been blessed to be captain and over homicide, director of homicide, rape, and child abuse, all the violent offenses, narcotics, and district commander. And I have used this in my application in police services to the community and also internally. So I began to look at how can we deal with the cause of it and not the symptom. You see, black on black crime and drugs in your community and gangs are all symptoms of a much bigger cause. And Dr. King, as I read him, and Dr. Lafayette and David tell me that you have to work on the root of the cause, not the symptom. And we begin to look at what's driving the behavior, not the behavior itself. In fact, you cut the roots off. If you cut your grass every week, you just balance and keep your grass even. If you want to stop your grass from growing, go to the roots. So Dr. King looked at the cause of what's happening in the communities and not the symptom. Okay? The first thing in nonviolence. We have to find out what's causing our youth to behave and tells them 5 or 6 things they could have done before the fight starts. So that's Dr. King. Nonviolence is proactive. You have the responsibility. We cannot control what people do to us. And I was trying to control that when I was oppressed and segregated in St. Louis and almost hung because I wanted to swim in a public park. And I had to say, I have the power to control the incident, not other people. Because you cannot control what other people do to you. The only thing you can control is how you respond. In South Africa, we told them how to respond. In police departments, we show how do you respond to people who are violent to you. Okay? You can dispel. We can practice and tell youth how do you dispel a person that's angry with you. Normally, like Dr. Lafayette and David said, do something genuine but unusual. It has to be genuine but unusual. That type of behavior in a crisis incident has a potential to bring it down. Police work. In domestic quarrel, you have to come in and take your own character and do something genuine but unusual. That's a process of nonviolence. In the FBI Academy, in Quantico, the police department does all types of nonviolent acts when they have hostage situations. I was in hostage team in St. Louis. They don't go in people's houses and blow them away. They turn the water off, they negotiate, they turn off the electricity, And then when that fails, they talk some more. Quantico does not advocate going in with force. Okay? So the police department naturally, and I know you're in public safety, the person that's the best officer on the street is the officer that has the gift of gab. Not the weapon, not the big old knockdown stick. No, no. The officer that has the gift of gab. And some officers, when situations happen, you have to bring other officers in because they're the ones that communicate well in hostile situations. So nonviolence is alternatives. And all it does in the police department is gives you a professional tool that says there's another bag in your professional bag that you can use, and you just explore the alternative. With youth understand it, they really gravitate toward it because they don't see anything that they're doing that changes social conditions. So we say, okay, let's change your school. The only reason you have drugs in your school is because you want them there. It's like the plane I just took up here. They said, don't smoke. You can't smoke on my plane. It's a social responsibility statement. They say you can smoke, you just can't do it here. So when youngsters understand the power, like Dr. King, the empowerment of self, and we give them the skills to go into their high schools and they lead it, because the police can't take drugs out of schools, the church can't take drugs out of schools, the teachers can't. They know who's selling drugs. They know it's there, and they want to live with the necessary responsibility. But they have to understand that's the power they have to begin to facilitate that movement with 6 other groups that we train. The law enforcement has to be involved. Policemen don't stop crime. The last person is there. They don't stop crime. We've been telling people we stop crime. When it doesn't stop crime, then they blame us. And they say you're corrupt and your police are lazy. The community stops crime. That's why community-oriented policing is a buzzword now. So we teach police officers how to go into a situation of infested drug neighborhood, and this is not theory, this is all thing I've done in narcotics when I was commander of narcotics, and teach the officer how to mobilize the community so the community begins to stop crime. And teach the youth how to go into a school, whether it's fighting in the lunchroom, or whether it's drugs in their school, and teach them how to empower themselves to decide their own destiny. So we take the skills of Dr. King and modify them to 1995. In college campuses, date rape. You can't stop date rape until you educate men what it is. So it's a whole process of the holistic approach. See, we do major surgery when you go into colleges or police departments or churches, etc., and not just surface. You have to get out, you have to go to the root of what's driving that. And the community as a whole has a responsibility. So what is it? It's a set of principles that guide your behavior. There's 6 principles, and those are rules of the game. And we teach you the 6 principles. And that has to indicate how your behavior acts when you begin to solve conflict.
In New York City, 42% of the women coming into the emergency room are there because of violence and trauma related to violence. And their boyfriends and their husbands, etc.
This morning they said that 71% of youth in high school know girls who have been beaten up by their boyfriends.
That's right. That's right.
It's just done this morning.
Child abuse has been the #1 assault crime since 1971 in the state of Ohio. Just what's reported. So we see it's right all around us. So we have to, and the most vulnerable are people of racial and religious minorities or sexual minorities. And we say minority not in the sense of numerical things, but who's got the power? Who's got the sanction? And our children see this, of course. The other thing is that we also have state and local and federal government with us now, especially state and local government. One of the most important achievements we've been able to make, that we are proud of, is that we have approximately 140, 150 certified co-trainers. Probably 65% of them are police officers, and 35% of them are educators or ministers or college student leaders. We have a large concentration in Detroit, but an even larger group in the state of Florida, where the state has legislatively established the Martin Luther King Institute for Nonviolence. And for these folks, it was a transforming experience for their lives. Whether they were in education or whether they were in law enforcement or in corrections. So the thing that's distinctive about this program is that it is a comprehensive strategy that means that we have to have organizations and leadership from all of those 6 constituencies intersecting. And in Columbus, we're started with the school system. But we need, like for example, in the correctional field, we know 3 of the 5 kids who are going to be in prison are dead in 5 years. We know their name, address, phone number between 9 and 12 years of age right now. Because 67% in Ohio prisons of people incarcerated, I'm talking about post-conviction and sentencing, people incarcerated had a mother, father, brother, sister previously incarcerated in the system. And $60 million here in the jail. $110,000 to sell, $33,000 a year to maintain it. Lafayette and I both went to graduate school at Harvard, and it was so much cheaper than what we pay to keep a person in prison. Juvenile detention, $31,000 in the state of Ohio. To write a ticket, you know, for successful education in life, if we could get them in a different context. So that's why these 6 constituencies we're talking about have to all be interacting and functioning together. So in terms of a program in Central Ohio, we see beginning in the educational sector, which involves both suburban schools, 3 Columbus high schools, Bishop Hartley High School. We're talking about getting young people and leadership within the schools and parents engaged in this process. What we need to get the correctional people involved in this. We need all the police and law enforcement. We need the religious community very involved in this. All these voluntary associations, neighborhood houses, and all this kind of stuff. Because we all have a contribution to make. And it takes that for a comprehensive strategy. When we decided to immunize using the Salk vaccine to stop the polio epidemic in the 50s, we didn't do it piecemeal. We didn't do it trickle down. We got every elementary school kid in the United States inoculated. So what we're talking about is every kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. I heard a man on an open line the other day who studied this whole issue